Basic teaching skills for the career education instructor. We're going to be into chapter 6, and we're going to be discussing communicating confidently. You may believe that you understand what someone said, but what you heard may not be what they meant. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about what does that mean. We are going to talk about and define communication. We're going to identify barriers to communication. We're going to learn to listen more effectively. How to recognize communication style. We're going to list some keys for communicating confidently. And we're going to explain strategies for in-school communication. That is huge for who we are and what we do. As master educators, we know that the goal of effective communication is not only speaking and listening, but it's mutual understanding. We have to speak less and we need to listen more. Communicating self-confidence, enthusiasm, self-esteem, energy, and appreciation to others are all forms of communication. To communicate, what does that mean? It means to transmit information, thoughts, feelings, so that it's satisfactorily received and understood. It's the packaging and controlling of the information. It's kind of like the encoding. It's communication. Decoding of the communication is the interpreting of the information and giving feedback, then encoding it again. We're going to break that down. What did that mean? When we communicate, what we're doing is we're taking a message, we're sending our words to the person that's receiving it, they're grabbing it, they're listening, they're sending feedback back to the sender, which that goes back to the message. So basically, this is communication. It's the message to the receiver, to the feedback, back to the sender, back to the message. It's communication. There are barriers to communication, and some of those are physical barriers. Disturbing factors in the physical environment can be a barrier to communication. There's mental barriers, so there's physical barriers, there's mental barriers. And mental barriers come from selective listening. And it creates people, it causes assumptions to be made. So then they hear what they didn't hear. There's emotional barriers that causes emotions such as stress. Somebody hears you say something, it causes them stress. Worry, it creates fear, anger, or maybe it even brings in the emotion of love. There's cultural barriers. Those barriers they're from people's different traditions in life, manners, habits. All of these things create a barrier to being able to have effective communication. When we communicate, only 7% of the message comes verbally. So what I say, 7%, that's it. Non-verbally, you hear 38% of what's being said. But the message actually comes across 55% visually. So let's talk about body language. Would you not say that's where it's going to come? So there's the spoken word. And what is the spoken word that we use? It is our voice. So let's actually take voice and let's take it down to an acronym. So let's use the V in voice for volume. Volume is something that we vary, right? It's something that can be heard. Let's say open. Open can be, the O can be for open mouth. You have to open your mouth in order to be understood. You have to be interesting. You have to be concise. You have to be clear. You can use tongue twisters to improve your voice. Different ways to make those things happen. Nonverbal communication. Let's talk about nonverbal communication. Facial expressions. How many times has So you said something to someone and they didn't say a word, but you could tell by their facial expressions they weren't very happy, or maybe they got very excited. Or what about that eye roll? What kind of message does that send to the student? So eye contact, nonverbal communication, 6 feet and greet. I can say hi to someone that I meet, or I can look them in the eye and kind of give them that little smile. That's a warm greeting as well. Body language. My body language tells you everything that you need to know. It lets you know whether I'm self-confident, or it lets you know if I'm shy. It lets you know if I believe what I'm saying. It lets you know how into what it is that I'm going to deliver, what the message is. My body language tells you yes, and my body language tells you no. There are 4 different body postures for language, and I want to talk to you about those. There is the responsive body posture, and that's where the listener is actively accepting the message. There's the reflective posture, and that's where the listener is interested and they're receptive, but they're not actively receiving information. There's the fugitive body posture. That one is where the listener is trying to escape, either physically or mentally, from boredom. We've all seen that in classrooms, haven't we? Or there's the combative, and that's where the listener is presenting an active resistance to what you're saying. They're pushing back, they're crossing their arms, they're doing all different things that their body language is telling you that they do not accept whatever it is that you're saying. Active listening. When people are using active listening, they are with the speaker. They speak only when the speaker is finished. They repeat what the speaker said, and they gain agreement from the speaker. This would all be characteristics of the active listener. Some communication styles are the thinker. That's people who are guarded in their interactions. Self-control to the thinker is very important. We have the achiever. The achiever is the person who resists the impulse to reveal very much about their inner selves. Then we have the seller. The seller, now they are people. Then we have the relator. The relator is the person who is very warm and friendly. They ask questions of a personal nature. Let's talk about establishing trust and rapport. Trust. That's when we're assured that reliance on the character or the ability of the strength or the truth of someone or whatever it is that they're saying or something. We build rapport by mirroring body language of the other person. We build rapport when we mirror the words or the style of the other person. These are all ways that we can build trust and rapport. Mirroring body language helps to probably establish that rapport better than anything. And we need to make sure that we increase personal awareness. And some of the ways that we can make sure that we do that when we're doing communication is that we can maintain and we can be very clear and we can be very open with our communication. We can give freely of our communication. We need to speak clear, but we need to be concise. We need to observe the nonverbal language of other cultures. We need to consider the causes of conflict. We need to accept that different cultures do things differently. It doesn't mean good or bad, it just means different. We need to explain our own philosophy or our culture so that we can increase awareness and personal awareness to make sure that everything's clear, everything's open. Tips to communicating confidently. You need to make yourself feel good. When you feel good, you can overcome self-consciousness. You can minimize self-criticism. You can perfect your speech. You can curb anger. You can cool down emotionally. All these things, when you are confident in your communication, All of these things can be factors that fall into place. We need to help people minimize self-criticism, and communication confidently is the greatest way to do that. We need to develop and deliver powerful antidotes. Don't ask, how are you? Because you know what you might get? You might get the answer you're not looking for. We need to develop a very unique response when people ask us questions like, how are you? Our answers need to be very confident. We need to communicate very clearly. We can do that when we ask provocative and pleasing questions. We need to learn when we are trying to communicate, it means we talk less. It means we listen more. Normally when you think communication, you think talk. You think the more I talk to you, the more I communicate with you. But it's actually just the opposite. We need to ask the questions, then we need to be quiet. So we need to talk less, we need to listen more. We need to use brief responses. We need to determine, is it feelings or is it fact? When people say things to us, is it the way they feel or is it the fact? We need to give positive reinforcement to our students. That will help them be able to be more confident. You know what you need to do? You need to stop the gossip, but share the hugs. These are all things for communicating confidently. When we're talking about communicating with our coworkers, we need to make sure that everyone is treated with respect. Make sure that you remain objective. But you need to always be honest, but sensitive. You've got to remain neutral. When you need help, please seek that help from someone that you respect. In a break room or a group situation, you know what? It's very important that you do not take things personally. And it's really important that you keep your private life just that. You keep your private life private. When you're communicating with your managers or your upline, you want to be known as the problem solver. You want to get your facts straight before you ever walk into the room. You want to communicate very openly and very honestly. Don't go in and repeat gossip. And don't go in and complain about your colleagues. Make sure that you do an attitude check before you ever walk into the room. You need to be open to the constructive criticism that may come your way, because we all know that nothing in the world helps us grow more than standing in the heat. And the way we stand in the heat is through constructive criticism. Let's go in and let's wrap some of this up. So our goal with confident communication is mutual understanding. Communication is not about talking and listening, it's about mutual understanding. We've agreed that we need to speak less and we need to listen more. We need to let others know that we care. We need to make other people feel special. We need to pay value to others. We need to communicate enthusiasm, self-esteem, self-confidence, energy, and most of all, we need to communicate appreciation. So guys, that actually ends this chapter, and I look forward to meeting with you on the next one.